Just in case y'all were intrigued by the thumbnail, this is not a prop. This is a real 35mm camera. And yes, I have actually taken photos with it, just in case y'all were concerned about me being a poser. Hello folks, welcome to Jack Reviews Musicals. If this is your first time seeing my face on the internet, my name is Jack and I'm a musical theater superfan based in St. Louis, Missouri, and this is my YouTube channel where I share my thoughts on all of the musical productions I go out to see in town. And in this video, I will be sharing my thoughts on New Line Theater's auspicious production of Rent, which is currently playing at the Marcel Theater from now until June 21st of 2025. Rent, of course, being the magnum opus of Jonathan Larson. This is only one of two complete musicals that Larson gave us until his untimely death in 1996 at the age of 35. He passed away the night before Rent's off-Broadway opening night, in a production that was directed by Michael Greif, director of Next to Normal and Dear Evan Hansen, and featuring a cast of all newcomers before they got super famous. Anthony Rapp, Adam Pascal, Daphne Rubin Vega, Jesse L. Martin, Taye Diggs, and Idina Menzel. Jonathan Larson did not live to see Rent, this rock riff on the story La Boheme, a show that he had been working on for years at that point, transfer to Broadway, run on the Great White Way for 12 years, win the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, win 4 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, adapted into a feature film directed by the guy who did Home Alone, and also starring the original Broadway cast, who were well into their 30s, maybe even 40s, playing kids fresh out of college. Quite frankly, the producers should have been put in straitjackets for that. And of course, Larson could not see Rent touch entire generations of theater goers and theater artists. Its positive depiction of people living with HIV during the height of the AIDS crisis in America, its uncompromising DIY guerrilla theater aesthetic, and its genuine rock score, the first that Broadway has heard in a long time since the onset of the British invasion, the dominance of the mega musical, the emergence of HIV and AIDS. Rent really touched the zeitgeist of the time. And Rent was forced into the mainstream incredibly fast, in a manner that has only been rivaled in recent years by Hamilton. It's a cultural touchstone, which kind of makes it frustrating whenever I see people detract Rent, viewing it as very amateurish in its construction. Its message is being very preachy and the characters being super whiny. And they only view it as successful because of the sob story behind its creation. Now, these people aren't necessarily wrong, they've just been misled. For total transparency, I am a staunch Rent defender, a Rent head as they would call me. And yes, I can plainly see the show's flaws. After all, this show is technically unfinished, but I still consider it to be one of the most artistically interesting and culturally important musicals to come out within the last 30 years. I have a lot of things to say about Rent detractors, but if you just want to know those thoughts, you can read my review of the Muni's production of it that they did in 2023. That's on my website, jackreviewsmusicals.com. And for a quick recap on my thoughts on that production, I thought it was quite lackluster. The Muni made a lot of production decisions that made the show feel tame, when it really should be uncompromising in its approach to its subject matter. New Line Theater's production, I am very thankful to say, is totally respectful of Jonathan Larson's masterwork, giving Rent a mounting that's gritty, that's raw, that's cheerful, and how raucous it is totally rockin', and is even quite elegant in a lot of ways. In the intro, I call New Line's production auspicious, which I did for a few reasons. Number 1, this is New Line Theater's 100th production in their 33rd year, presenting some of the most daring musicals that St. Louis has seen, and inspiring generations of St. Louis theater makers and theater fans, myself included. Number 2, this production is coming during a trying time for New Line. Very recently, the Missouri Arts Council have pulled their funding for New Line, a uniquely American problem under the new US government with providing funding to non-profit theater companies. Truly a sign of our times. Usually I hate bringing politics into my reviews, but this is one of the cases where it's unavoidable. And to be perfectly frank, I am sick and tired of being nice about this. Obviously, losing funding from the Missouri Arts Council is pretty devastating for any theater company, and for New Line, because they were so inspirational to me, I couldn't not do something about this. So I started a GoFundMe page where folks can contribute to continuing New Line's legacy and giving them the means to, one, create some really daring productions, and two, fairly compensate their artists, something that a lot of folks have a hard time grasping that theater companies should do. I'm gonna leave a link to the GoFundMe page in the description. Donate to it if you can, but if you can't, please share the page. I really cannot overemphasize how much every little bit helps. $10 can buy New Line a whole can of paint to cover their set with it. $200 can go towards a paycheck for one of their musicians. In the end, it all adds up. Third reason for this production being so important. It's coming out during Pride Month, which reminds me, I completely forgot to put this on before I started the recording. Happy Pride, folks. This is the first Pride Month in America since the onset of the new US government, and how its overhaul has resulted in the rights and safety of the LGBT plus community being put at constant risk. The American government is actively making this country a dangerous place for LGBT plus people to even exist. And Rent is a really important show to be putting on during this time, because Rent has very frank depictions of LGBT plus issues, and the most iconic song from the show, Seasons of Love, is a heartfelt, serious call for shared humanity, for togetherness, for living in the moment. It's a nice aloe against ground that feels increasingly treacherous. It's a healing story, one that we need to see right now. And I think New Line was smart enough to capitalize on that. Important reason number 4, and this is the last one, and much like the best things in life, this was done completely by accident. Remember when Fox presented Rent live in 2019? How one of the actors injured their foot the night before the broadcast and had to perform the show in a wheelchair? Same thing happened to New Line. The day before the production's opening night, after New Line had already done their press photo shoot, J. David Brooks, the actor who plays Mark in this production, also injured his foot. However, Brooks' injury was not so severe that he had to perform in a wheelchair, but he did have to perform opening weekend in a boot, with limited movement and modified blocking to accommodate his injury, Hadestown Pro Shot style. And I clarify all this because when I show New Line's production photos throughout this review, it is not a reflection of J. David Brooks' injury. We here at Jack Reviews Musicals wish for his speedy recovery, and we acknowledge just how much of a trooper he is. Honestly, you have my respect, Mr. Brooks. But with that said, the way that the production's co-directors, Scott Miller and Chris Moore, and also their choreographer, Chelsea Johnston, modified Mark's movement, as last minute as it was gracefully done. They actually revealed a greater depth to Mark's character. It makes this portrayal of Mark very different from every other version of Rent I've seen. Mark Cohen is Rent's narrator. He guides us through New York City's bohemian East Village of the mid-1990s, during the height of New York City's AIDS crisis. And Mark also serves as the audience's surrogate, helping us to absorb all of New York City's squalor and desperation and even darkness in the East Village. Mark is an independent filmmaker who spends most of the show recording the action, filming a documentary about a year in the life of his circle of friends, most of whom are kids fresh out of college, still trying to find a way to make their artist dreams sustain themselves. And Mark always has his camera on him. And I mean always. There are a lot of moments in New Line's production where Mark is positioned in more of the shadowy sections of the Marcel Theater, or even sitting in amongst the audience as he's capturing the action, even during moments where Mark is actively being intrusive, being essentially a voyeur. It honestly makes it feel earned when Mark is being lambasted for always hiding behind his camera, and people yelling at Mark, pointing fingers, accusing him of being, exploitative. And with New Line's Mark being fitted in a boot, I'm constantly reminded of Jimmy Stewart's character in Rear Window, always watching from afar with a very limited scope. It very accidentally emphasizes Mark's central character flaw, that he focuses too much on capturing life, of viewing life in hindsight rather than living in the moment, which is something that throughout the show Mark wrestles with. And J. David Brooks's interpretation of Mark makes that struggle totally visible. He is so emotionally vulnerable, more so than any other Mark I've seen. You can really see why he became a filmmaker, because Mark does feel too much. In a way, I see a lot of myself in Mark. I have a very strong kinship with this character, because Mark sees the reality of the world around him, and he feels as if he has to capture it somehow. He has to reflect the truth back on the world itself, because he can't not do something. It's as if this Mark is saying, this is the only thing I know to do in order to heal. Brooks's Mark is passionate. He's empathetic, more in tune with reality. During the song Goodbye Love, when the other characters are arguing with each other, having full-throated fights over nonsense that has nothing to do with why they're all there, Mark is actually sobbing, like he is so sick of this crap. And throughout the show, when we see Mark being called out for escaping reality through his filmmaking, we can see how hurt he is through Brooks's performance. And even Mark's moments of exuberance, particularly during La Vie Boheme, they're much more matter-of-fact, like he's confident in his own skin, like he doesn't care that he has an injury, he's just happy to be present with his friends. It's a brilliant performance. But that's just talking about the narrator. The real stars of the show are Rent's star-crossed lovers, Roger Davis and Mimi Marquez. Roger is a rock guitarist, resistant to make genuine human connections with others after his romantic partner took her own life after they both got diagnosed with HIV. Mimi is an erotic dancer, trying to find true love in a time and place where your only purpose is to survive. And like Roger, she is also HIV positive, which adds onto their struggle for connection the idea that they are running out of time. And you definitely get that sense of urgency from the actors portraying them. Nathan Meesey is Roger and Corinna Redford is Mimi, because Roger and Mimi are the linchpins of Rent who keep us invested in this story, and Meesey and Redford treat them that way, infusing their performances with levels of emotional nuance. They always keep us guessing, will they or won't they? Through Nathan Meesey, you feel Roger's depression and his struggle for motivation to write his one great song, and through Corinna Redford, you feel Mimi's desperation and adamance for living in the moment, even if she resorts to doing things that are dangerous for her own health. And this tug of war between these two characters, they result in fireworks whenever Meesey and Redford have to share a stage together. And the nuance they give these characters really does pay off. In one of the most cathartic finales that I have seen in a musical, it still induces gasps from audience members. We do get to see one positive representation of a couple with HIV in Tom Collins and Angel Dumas-Chouinard, who in New Line's production are played by Chris Moore, one of the production's co-directors, and Aaron Kamphoffner. Collins is a computer genius and MIT philosophy professor who was expelled for his anarchist beliefs. Angel is a drag queen and a street busker who falls in love with Collins after saving him from getting mugged, but not before Angel had resorted to killing someone's dog for money. Again, let me emphasize, this is a desperate place and a desperate time. Collins and Angel are both roles that feel totally different from any role that I have seen be played by both of these actors. Like, it was to the point that they were virtually unrecognizable, especially Aaron Kamphoffner as Angel. Their Angel oozes confidence, making their role as guardian angel over the other characters a surety, especially in Act 2, when this happens quite literally. In a production choice that is so stunning, you need to see it for yourself to believe it, to really feel its full effect. Chris Moore as Collins is also self-assured, exercising a self-control that makes the cracks in his facade that much more pulse-pounding. Moore's rendition of the reprise of Collins and Angel's love song, I'll Cover You, is soaring. When the song was over, I had cheered the hardest that I had ever cheered for any actor within the last year. He was incredible. There is one more major couple to discuss in Rent: Maureen Johnson and Joanne Jefferson, who are played in New Line's production by Sarah Lucan and Jasmine Candela Wade. Maureen is a polyamorous pansexual performance artist who was Mark's girlfriend before dumping him for Joanne, an older lesbian lawyer whose uptightness causes her to constantly butt heads with Maureen. And through this contrast, Lucan and Wade's chemistry together is very fun, especially in their dynamite rendition of their duet, Take Me or Leave Me. But on their own, they're just as good. Wade puts Joanne's anxiousness on full display, especially in Tango Maureen, which I feel kind of bad that we didn't get to see the tango choreography that they developed for this number, though honestly, to be fair, I never really liked that section of the song. I really didn't think it belonged in the show. And I'm glad that New Line made the last-minute decision to cut the tango, that they just kept the tango as a metaphor, because having a literal tango in that song kind of overemphasized the point. Sarah Lucan as Maureen is having the time of her life. She's full of exuberance, full of sass, and she quite literally pulls off the moment in La Vie Boheme when she moons the audience. And her performance of Over the Moon, which is this avant-garde, absurdist retelling of the nursery rhyme Hey Diddle Diddle, was absolutely hilarious. And Lucan can get the audience to participate in the story that she tells with wild conviction. The last major character to really discuss is Rent's antagonist, Benjamin Coffin III. Benny is the landlord of the Artist Loft apartments where the characters all live. Benny was actually formerly a roommate of the other characters before marrying into money and making his career change as a landlord, hoping to earn a living by transforming the Artist Lofts into a computer art studio, which is a decision that the other characters are vehemently against because it would result in them losing their home. And there is a lot of gray area there. And Benny's portrayal in New Line's production by Aaron Tucker emphasizes that Benny is not a villain. He's not a bad guy. He's just antagonist. There is a difference. Tucker's Benny feels a lot more sympathetic than others I've seen. We can look at him and see that he is wrestling between choosing his friend's happiness and choosing his own personal success. Aaron Tucker does make Benny a more gray character than other actors willing to portray, and that's commendable. And all of the actors are like that, really, especially with the ensemble of bohemians who play multiple roles in the story. The characters' parents, drug dealers, people living with HIV and AIDS, and people just trying to make an honest living in one of the hardest places to live on your own. Every member of New Line Theater's ensemble is a standout, including a name or two we may have to watch out for in the future. There's Brittany Cole, Sophia McGrath, Twain Noah, Rachel Parker, Raphael DaCosta, who is great as the male soloist in Seasons of Love, Chelsea Johnston, who is hysterical hysterical as Alexi Darling, who is the executive of a news tabloid trying to hire Mark as a reporter. There's Gabriel Scott Lawrence, who is also the production's intimacy director, and they give a stunning rendition of the opening stanza of Will I. And he is so funny as both the squeegee man and the waiter of the live cafe during La Vie Boheme. And finally, there's Lauren Tenenbaum, who absolutely hits that high note during Seasons of Love. You really do have to hear it for yourself. I mean, across the board, the vocals are just fantastic. Nathan Misi is a dead ringer vocally for Adam Pascal, the original Roger. And Chris Moore's reprise of I'll Cover You is absolutely stunning. And it's all thanks to musical director Randon Lane and his always rockin' New Line band, delivering Jonathan Larson's score expertly. Randon Lane and Adam Rugo are on the keys, Rugo and Zach Kempen are on guitars, John Gerdes is on bass, and Clancy Newell is on drums. And the cast also look fantastic in costumes designed by Zachary Thompson. The costumes are super stylish, like they are filled with period detail of the 90s. And they're all great bohemian fashions. Like, I can see myself and my artist friends dressed in these costumes. I think I've seen Gabriel Scott Lawrence's exact fit in this show from at least one of my friends. Every costume from all of the characters are so unique. You remember what each of them looks like. Angel's looks are fabulous, Maureen's looks are sexy as all get out, and Roger looks like a proper 90s rock guitarist. Roger could be a member of Nirvana. New Line set designer Todd Schaefer successfully transforms the Marcel Theater into the loft apartment where the characters all live. And Schaefer makes it look like that it definitely was converted from an abandoned factory. It's a skeletal, multi-level set, platforms that make for dynamic staging, especially in Mimi's solo Out Tonight. And Schaefer makes room in the set for cool lighting effects, designed by Ryan Thorpe. The most outstanding feature of the set is a large, circular platform with 2 levels. The audience surrounds it on 3 sides, it's right in the middle of the Marcel Theater, and the platforms were painted to make them look like the moon floating in space, which is an excellent staging choice for Maureen's Over the Moon, but it also doubles as the table for the live cafe in La Vie Boheme. We see it as the market where everybody converges and Christmas bells. Features itself brilliantly in the reprise of I'll Cover You. The moon platform was a pretty great way of creating a permanent fixture in the set that the actors can naturally gather around. And it really does place emphasis on Rent's themes of togetherness, of shared humanity, and even sailing over the moon to achieve your dreams, as hokey as it sounds. But its hokiness is part of its charm. It's the reason why Rent works. If you couldn't tell, this is a show that I connect with on a pretty deep personal level. I don't care if it's clunky. I don't care if it has flaws. The stuff in Rent that's good is really good. The songs, outstanding. The story, timeless. The characters, memorable. And the themes, layered beyond belief. You can definitely see why it gave way to a whole new generation of musical theater fans and artists. And you feel that in New Line Theater's production. And come to think of it, literally everything about New Line Theater's production, even the elements that were discovered completely by accident at the last minute, feel like this amazing cosmic convergence. It can't be duplicated. It's an incredibly unique production. And I am very happy that this is New Line Theater's 100th production. Have you seen New Line Theater's production of Rent? If so, what did you think about it? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below and let me know. And while you're at it, be sure to read my back catalog of written reviews on my website, jackreviewsmusicals.com. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any more St. Louis musical theater reviews and other variety content tangentially related to musical theater coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, long live the musical and viva la vie Boheme!